A psychiatrist once asked his patients a question that startled them in their darkest moments. Why do you not choose to end your life? He did not ask out of cruelty, but out of hope. In their answers, he often discovered what still tied them to existence. For some, it was love for their children. For others, a talent not yet used, or memories too precious to abandon. From these fragile threads, he sought to weave a pattern strong enough to hold meaning and responsibility. This was the task of logotherapy, to help a human being rediscover a reason to remain. The man who asked this question had himself been reduced to the edge between being and non-being. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and writer, had lived for years inside concentration camps where human beings were treated worse than animals. His parents, his brother, and his wife were murdered. Only his sister survived. He lost his home, his work, his manuscripts, his future as he had imagined it. Hunger, cold, humiliation, and the constant expectation of death became his daily reality. And yet he continued to believe that life was still worth preserving. A man who has endured such suffering speaks with a rare authority. His words do not persuade by theory alone, but by the weight of lived truth. They carry honesty shaped by extremes where illusion cannot survive. Out of this experience emerged not only a testimony of brutality, but a quiet and profound insight into the human condition. In the camps, every familiar structure of life collapsed. Goals vanished, plans were meaningless, the future shrank to the next hour, the next roll call, the next breath. Prisoners became numbers, stripped of dignity and privacy. Under such conditions, emotional numbness often replaced fear. Curiosity about one's own fate emerged, cold and distant. Survival became a matter of conserving whatever fragments of strength remained. Yet even there, something persisted. Images of loved ones appeared in the mind like fragile flames, a remembered voice, a face, a shared moment. Some prisoners clung to faith, others to a bitter sense of humor that defied despair. Sometimes it was beauty itself that intruded unexpectedly, the sight of a tree against the sky, the colors of a sunset glimpsed beyond barbed wire. These moments did not remove suffering, but they reminded the prisoner that life had not entirely withdrawn its presence. Still, such moments alone were not enough. Comfort did not create the will to live unless it revealed a deeper meaning behind the pain. Survival depended not on strength nor intelligence, but on the ability to see suffering as part of a larger purpose. If life had meaning, then suffering must also contain meaning, even if that meaning could not be immediately understood. No one could define that purpose for another. Each person had to discover it alone and accept the responsibility that came with it. Those who succeeded did not escape suffering, but they grew despite it. As Nietzsche once wrote, those who have a reason to live can endure almost any how. In the concentration camp, everything seemed designed to destroy a person's inner freedom. And yet, Frankl observed that one freedom remained. The final human freedom was the ability to choose one's attitude toward circumstances, even when those circumstances could not be changed. This idea, long recognized by ancient thinkers, became painfully real within the camps. Prisoners were ordinary people, but some proved capable of rising above their fate by deciding to remain worthy of their suffering. Frankl, as a physician of the mind, wanted to know how this capacity could be awakened in others. How could a person be helped to feel responsible to life even in unbearable conditions? He recalled moments when he spoke to fellow prisoners, offering not escape but perspective, not false hope, but the reminder that life was still asking something of them, even now. Later, after the war, Frankl reflected on the strange fate of his own book. Written quickly with the intention of remaining anonymous, it was never meant to bring recognition. Its sole purpose was to demonstrate through lived example that life holds potential meaning under all conditions, even the most miserable. He believed that if meaning could be found in a concentration camp, it could be found anywhere. Ironically, this book became a success far beyond his expectations. When asked how it felt to achieve such recognition, Frankl responded that the popularity of the book reflected not his achievement, but the suffering of an age desperately searching for meaning. A society that flocks to a book about purpose reveals its own inner hunger. He warned his students not to pursue success directly. Success, like happiness, cannot be chased. It must occur as a byproduct of devotion to something greater than oneself, or through genuine connection to another human being. Those who forget about success and instead listen to their conscience may find over time that success follows them quietly. From Auschwitz, Frankl carried a lesson that remained unchanged even decades later. It is possible to say yes to life despite everything. Tragedy does not cancel meaning. Suffering does not erase responsibility. And even in the darkest circumstances, the human spirit retains the power to choose dignity. This belief was not born from optimism, but from endurance, and it remains a reminder that as long as life continues to ask something of us, we are not finished answering. This story does not concern itself with external events or grand historical facts. It is about inner experiences, those lived quietly and repeatedly by countless prisoners, each in his own way. It is a view of the concentration camp from the inside, told by someone who survived it. The intention is not to recount the great horrors already described elsewhere, nor the spectacles of heroism or martyrdom, but the countless small torments that shaped daily existence. The true question is this: how did everyday life in a concentration camp reflect itself in the mind of the average prisoner? The experiences described here did not take place in the most famous camps, but in their smaller, often forgotten branches. These lesser camps were frequently the true sites of extermination. What is described is not the suffering of notable individuals or those with power, but the quiet destruction of the anonymous prisoner, the one without privileges, without influence, without protection. While some ate well and survived comfortably, the ordinary prisoner starved. From a psychological standpoint, those who held power within the camp often came to resemble the guards themselves. Chosen precisely because of their brutality, they enforced cruelty with greater force than the official authorities. Only those willing to act without mercy were selected for such roles, and anyone who failed to do so was quickly removed. To an outsider, the concentration camp is often imagined sentimentally, simplified into a single image of shared suffering. The reality was far harsher. Survival was a ruthless struggle, not only against hunger and exhaustion, but one another. In the smaller camps especially, the fight for life was constant. Bread, shelter, work assignments, everything became a battleground. When rumors spread of a transport leaving the camp, officially described as a relocation but widely understood to mean death, panic followed. Those who were weak or ill were marked for removal. In that moment, morality vanished. Each prisoner thought only of saving himself or those closest to him. To remove one name from the list meant another would take its place. A prisoner was no longer a person, only a number, written on a list, sewn onto clothing, tattooed onto skin. Identity itself lost meaning. Names, professions, personal histories were irrelevant. Only the number mattered. Guards never asked for names, they noted numbers. A number recorded could mean punishment, disappearance, or death. Faced with such conditions, abstract reflection had no place. Survival demanded action, even if it meant betraying another. Those who endured for years often did so by surrendering scruples. Many who survived later knew this painful truth without hesitation. The best among us did not return. The account that follows is told by prisoner number 119104. He does not speak as a doctor or a psychologist, though he was trained as one. For most of his imprisonment, he was simply another laborer, digging earth, laying tracks, working alone in the cold. While others were fortunate enough to tend wounds indoors, he tunneled beneath frozen roads, exposed and exhausted. Once, as recognition for dangerous labor, he received 2 small reward coupons shortly before Christmas. These coupons could later be exchanged for cigarettes, currency within the camp. 12 cigarettes meant 12 bowls of soup. 12 bowls of soup often meant 2 weeks of survival. Only those with privilege could afford to smoke them. The rest traded them for food. When a prisoner chose to smoke instead of trade, it was understood that he had abandoned hope. Soon after, he usually died. This explains the purpose of the story. Countless reports have documented the facts of the camps. What is offered here is something different, how those facts were experienced inwardly. The focus is not on events themselves, but on their psychological imprint. The aim is twofold: to help those who lived through such camps understand their own experiences more clearly, and to help those who did not begin to grasp what cannot easily be explained. Survivors often say they do not like to speak of the past. Those who were there do not need explanations. Those who were not there can never fully understand what was felt then, or what remains within those who survived. Psychological distance is difficult. Those outside observe without involvement. Those inside were too deeply immersed to judge objectively. Yet only those who endured truly know the experience. Absolute objectivity is impossible. Distortion is inevitable. What can be done is to speak honestly, to avoid bias where possible, and to accept personal testimony when necessary. This work may serve as a contribution to the psychology of imprisonment, expanding what was once called the barbed wire disease. The Second World War exposed humanity not only to physical destruction, but to the pathology of mass suffering. Initially, the author intended to publish this work anonymously, identified only by a prisoner number. He feared exhibitionism and personal attention. But anonymity would weaken the testimony. In the end, he chose confession over concealment, believing that truth gains strength through courage. From the vast accumulation of observations, 3 psychological phases of camp life emerge: the shock of arrival, the state of existence within the camp, and the difficult period following liberation. It is with these inner transformations that the narrative continues. The first phase was marked by what could only be called the shock of arrival. This psychological blow often came even before any formal reception, depending on circumstances. For me, it began during the transport itself. For days and nights, 1,500 people had been crammed into freight cars, 80 bodies pressed together in each wagon, lying on top of their remaining belongings. Backpacks and bags were piled so high that only a narrow strip of light near the ceiling allowed a glimpse outside. At dawn, a pale glow appeared. We believed we were being taken to a factory, somewhere to be used for forced labor. The train stopped in the middle of nowhere. No one knew if we were still in Silesia or already in Poland. Then came the shrill whistle of the locomotive. It cut through us like a scream for help, echoing the unspoken fear of the mass of human beings being carried by the machine toward an unnamed catastrophe. The train began to maneuver toward a large station. Suddenly, from the crowded wagon, a voice cried out, "Look, the sign says Auschwitz!" In that instant, not a single heart remained untouched. Everyone knew what Auschwitz meant. The name alone summoned blurred yet terrifying images: gas chambers, crematoria, mass executions. The train moved forward slowly, almost hesitantly, as if reluctant to deliver the terrible news to its human cargo. Now the light was clearer. In the growing dawn, we saw the vast outline of the camp stretching endlessly on both sides of the tracks, barbed wire fences without end, watchtowers, floodlights, long columns of ragged human figures, gray in the early light, shuffling exhausted through desolate streets, with no one knowing where they were being led. Whistles sounded commands whose meaning no one understood. Terror appeared on faces around me. I thought I saw gallows with bodies hanging from them. Horror took hold of me, and that was good. From that moment on, second by second, step by step, we would have to face horror directly. At last we reached the unloading platform. Outside, nothing moved. Then violent shouts rang out, those peculiar, harsh commands we would hear again and again in every camp, sounding like the final cry of a murdered man, only hoarse and distorted, as if torn from the throat of someone forced to scream endlessly because he was being endlessly killed. The wagon doors were flung open. A small group of prisoners burst inside, wearing striped uniforms, heads shaved, yet visibly well-fed. They spoke every European language imaginable and radiated a cheerfulness so grotesque it seemed unreal. And just as a drowning person clutches at a straw, my stubborn optimism, an instinct that always surfaced in the worst moments, clung to this sight. These men did not look miserable. They were laughing. Who was to say I would not soon be like them? Psychiatry calls this the illusion of reprieve, the condemned man who, at the very moment of execution, believes a pardon will arrive at the last second. We clung to hope until the very end, convinced it could not possibly be as bad as we feared. We did not know these men were a carefully selected elite, chosen to receive the transports, to handle the baggage and the hidden valuables, objects scarce at the time, smuggled jewels and precious metals. Auschwitz had become a singular center in wartime Europe, amassing gold, silver, platinum, diamonds, stored in vast warehouses, carried by SS men and circulating among certain prisoners. Later, I would see 1,100 prisoners crammed into a barrack built for 200, sitting or squatting on frozen earth, starving. In 4 days, we received one thin piece of bread. I witnessed a barrack leader bargaining over a diamond-studded platinum tie pin. Most valuables ended up traded for alcohol, enough to forget for one night. Who could condemn a man for numbing himself in such a reality? Especially those forced to work in the gas chambers and crematoria, fully aware that once their turn ended, they would be replaced, and would themselves one day follow the same path as the victims they were compelled to process. We were all still trapped in the illusion of reprieve. Only that night would we begin to understand. We were ordered to abandon all luggage, to form separate lines of men and women, and to march past a senior SS officer. Instinctively, I kept my bag hidden beneath my coat. One by one, we approached him. He was tall, elegant, immaculate in his uniform, calm, at ease. He rested one arm on the other and casually flicked his index finger, left or right. None of us knew what that small gesture meant. A whisper reached me. To the right meant work, to the left meant sickness and incapacity. I stood straight. My bag pulled me to one side, but I forced my body upright. He hesitated, put his hands on my shoulders, turned me slowly, and sent me to the right. That night we learned the truth. That gesture had been the first selection, the first decision between being and not being. 90% of our transport was sent to death within hours. Those directed left were marched straight from the platform to the crematoria, disguised as bathhouses. They were handed a bar of soap. What followed need no description. When I asked about a friend who had gone the other way, a hand pointed to a distant chimney spewing flame into the gray Polish sky. "That's where he is now," someone said, "flying to heaven." We ran from the station through electrified wire corridors to disinfection. Again, the illusion was fed. The SS seemed polite, even friendly, especially when persuading us to hand over our watches and possessions. Stripped of everything, we waited. Some still asked if they might keep a ring, a medallion, a keepsake. No one believed that absolutely everything would be taken. I tried to save my manuscript, the work of my life. I showed it to an old prisoner, pleaded with him. At first, he seemed to understand. Then he laughed. Then he shouted a single word, the word I would hear more than any other in the camp. That was the moment I closed the book on my former life. We were driven into the bathing hall. 2 minutes to strip naked. Whips cracked as time ran out. We were shaved from head to toe. Then the showers. Water flowed, for now. Standing there, naked and hairless, we owned nothing but our bodies, our existence stripped bare. That was all that remained.